All right, how's it going, everyone? So today will be this is an unscheduled stream. I'm running pretty behind on the code review that I've been needing to do for this slot table refactor. And so we started doing the code review on stream, and so I'm trying to kind of have the whole code review actually be live, so that people that were interested could kind of go through and look at all of it if they wanted to. But this is not like a typical code review. It's taking a long time. It's very big CL, and it's pretty complicated code, so it's taking a bit of time. And I had a few hours here in the middle of the day that now that Chuck's back from out of town, I think I really need to hurry up on this code review. So thought I'd throw up OBS and just get started on it. And so if anyone wants to follow along, please do. And if you have any questions or just want to chat, that's also great as well. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, there were two previous streams where I was doing code review over this same CL. And the CL is this. It's written by Chuck, and it's reduced allocations attributable to the slot table. And I went through and kind of described a bit about the thinking behind this change and why we're doing it and why it might work, and kind of the high level overview. So I'm not going to go over all that again, but we're just going to jump back into the code here and try and find our spot. So we were looking at slot table still, I believe, or this is the biggest chunk of all of the work here. Need to find out where we were last time. This might be a little bit meta, but I'm gonna pull up let me just pull up Twitch. I'm gonna pull up that video real quick and just find out where I ended off. Will it not let me go to my videos? This is the channel. I guess it's not easy when I'm live to get to the videos. Okay, we'll go to YouTube instead. And here is the last view. It's like a recursive stream here. So I'm just trying to figure out where we were here at the end. Okay. I think we can probably end on, or start on remove group. All right, and then I guess I never submitted these comments, but right, I remember that. Okay. And actually, I'm gonna hop over to IntelliJ because I think it's a little bit easier to navigate the code in here versus on the CL. And since most of this file is just straight up new code, that's like a pretty reasonable thing to do. Actually, one thing I might do, yeah, this will be kind of nice actually. I'm gonna hit this commit, this patch set over into like unstaged changes so that it'll actually show up in IntelliJ as like a change. That's nice. Okay. So it's interesting to see like an iterator kind of be used in the wild here. This is returning an iterator for the slots of the group. That's neat. I can imagine this is like a pretty nice API. JB Pratt, I'm trying to figure out what the like emoji thing that you put in here. Oh, it says hello. I see. Hey JB Pratt, how's it going? Sorry, I'm not like I'm not super caught up on all the, you know, the fancy Twitch emotes and all that stuff that they got going on. I think there's like a hidden story behind each one or something. I don't know any of them. So this is pretty slick. I like this. You know, basically all we need to find is like the start and end index, and then this creates a nice little iterator to loop through it. So that'll give us like nice good like for in syntax. Move groups offset after the current group in front of the current group. Interesting. So this will. So if I'm at a position in the slot table, what this will do is this will find a group. This gets the group at some offset from my current position, and then moves it to my current position. I think. Let's find out. Hey Deb Souza, how's it going? If that's what it does, I mean, I can see why that API would be useful, but I wonder if there's like a better name for it, if that's how it works. So we can only move a group ahead of us, I guess. And it's offset 0, there's nothing we need to do. Hey Marcel. Marcel says, just got the fresh Android Studio 4.2 Canary, and luckily source jars are downloaded correctly again. Great, that's great to hear. So what is that Canary 14? Is that what it is? Canary. Yeah, 14. Okay. Hey Afsel. Yeah, Marcel, thanks for letting us know. For that reason I've been kind of avoiding upgrading on stream, and so now maybe I'll update the dog fooding app to like Alpha 5 and 4.2.14. So that'll be nice. Crossfire says, I have a problem around Jetpack navigation. Can I ask you a question? Sure, shoot. Okay, sorry, I was just reading a text. Okay, so we start off at the offset and group to move equals current. So I think I read the description wrong because it seems like we're moving the current group. I think maybe what happens is this switches groups. So basically you have the current group and then you have a group at the offset and it basically swaps them. And so the group at the offset will become the current group. That makes sense. Let's see, Crossfire says, I have a problem about my project based on Jetpack navigation. Firstly, I'm using this code, but it did not solve my problem. My problem is, for instance, I have home fragment in my bottom navigation, home fragment to detail fragment, and back press. Press and home fragment. Let me click this code real quick. I see. So Crossfire, I think this is a super valid question, and after the stream, I might try and help you out, take a look at it. But I don't want to get too far derailed from the current stream, and I think that this question might take more than a few minutes to answer. But basically, I think if I understand your question correctly, you should be able to save scroll state in Compose, and that should happen for the most part automatically, but it could not happen automatically if you're instantiating your like Compose view maybe in like a non-standard way, which potentially that sample is like pushing you in that direction. And so that would be like maybe the first thing that I would look at to make sure that that's happening properly. But I don't want to dive into it right here on screen, but I can help you out later. Okay, so group to move. Okay, so I think it might be important to I'm gonna give a suggestion here to include in the documentation that the offset needs to be in the bounds of the parent group. So another way of saying that is that this is only valid to move a sibling group. And then I think as a, well, let me finish looking at this function here. So why is this in a while loop? So it groups to move, group size, group to move, plus equals. I guess I'm like having trouble understanding what this loop is for. So we initialize count to offset and we're decrementing count each time. So basically this is like, you know, a repeat count. And so for offset number of times, we add to group to move the group size of the current group. Okay, so I guess like we're getting like a current index, right? And then we're saying move the group that's like 5 groups from here. And so then to get the index of that group, we just essentially take the current index and then we add the size of each 5 groups from here until then. And then that'll give us the index in group to move of the group that we're moving. So that works. So the move length. And so then this is the actual size of the group we're moving. And then I get, this is just specific pieces of that group. Length, okay. The order of operations is important here. Moving a block in the array requires inserting space for the block, copying the block, deleting the previous block. Right. So inserting means that we move the gap buffer. And then we just shrink the size of the gap. Makes sense? For this to work correctly, the groups must be in a valid state. That requires that the slot table must be inserted into first, so there are no transitory constraint violations in the groups. That is, there are no invalid, duplicate, or out of order anchors. Okay. Conversely, removing slots also involves moving the gap, requiring the groups to be valid. Slots must be removed after the groups that reference the old locations are removed. The order of operations is insert space at the destination. Insert space. Wait, oh, space for the slots, space for the groups. Oh, I see. Yeah, because we have 2 arrays here. So we need to do slots first. Okay. Crossfire says, okay, thank you, but I mean the fact that I face this and cannot find any solution when I navigate between firearms because of this user is affected badly. So can you ask someone who's capable about this? Sure. I mean, so if you're a member of the Kotlin Ling Slack, you could hop on there and potentially ask Ian Lake if if you're willing to wait, then after the stream I can try and help you out, either by figuring it out myself or asking someone else. Okay. Fix up the moved group anchors to refer to the new slot locations. Makes sense. Fix parent anchors and remove the old slots. Okay. So, I mean, this is pretty nice in that, Chuck is going ahead and kind of elaborating on the steps that need to be taken, and then actually describes or labels each step individually here, which is pretty nice. Okay, so first thing we do is insert space, keyword for it, insert groups, and copy. So I kind of want to see what this function does. Destination offset, start index, end index. Okay. So this is like a so this is like a system function. Okay, nice. Yeah, all right, this is basically just a wrapper around system.array copy. So this ought to be a very efficient operation, relatively speaking, at least. Okay, copy the slots. So fixed up the move group anchors. So I kind of want to understand this a bit more, because we need to go and change the anchors, because they're pointing to the wrong spot now, I guess. Date data index, address data index. So I'm getting sidetracked here, but I find this curious because I mean, so this is an extension function on int-array, but it's part of the slot table itself, or the slot writer rather, and it's using slots, and so I'm wondering what this array actually is. Like, what is this used for? So we get the slot anchor of this int array, but we use slots.size, which that feels kind of weird to me. Okay, so because it's a slot index. I see. So, all right, makes sense, I guess. But I wonder. Hey, Miriam. Thanks for saying hi. So it's like, it's kind of interesting that this slot index is a function that's made to be, you know, an extension on an int array versus just a member function of this writer that uses both slots and groups. Like, is there... yeah. Like, I don't know, I might make a, you know, recommendation based on that. Like this might make more sense if instead of being, you know, a slot index, which is an extension function on the array, like this is always going, that int array is always going to be groups, I think. So not sure that you really need to pass in. Yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit weird to me. It's only ever used on groups. This feels like maybe an overuse of the extension function. Let me just, now that it's like fresh in my mind, let me go and make that comment. Slot index. This page is so big that it's like, it's really taken Chrome a while to find text. Several array extension functions. Functions use both. So basically they use both slots and groups in their implementation and making it an extension on int array. The expectation that groups is the receiver feels I'm gonna say like this feels like a misuse of extension functions maybe. Should we consider instead having private fun slot index address int and have the implementation just use slots and groups directly since it is already required to be a member function. Other int array member functions on slot writer as well. Okay. What was I? Okay, so back to move group. There we are. Hey Skeptic, how's it going? Thanks for helping Crossfire out, Skeptic, as well. Appreciate it. Hey Sean. Like, I guess there are some situations where, like, groups.data index, I don't know. I guess that kind of works because then it feels like it's something on the groups array that you're getting, like some property of it. So I don't know. Well, you know, maybe the suggestion makes sense for some things, but not others. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong screen. Chill Code Lift asks, do you have any generic reviewer tips? My boss wants me to get more involved in code review meetings. I don't know. I guess the one tip I can think of, like off the cuff here, is like if something looks like different than you would do it, or if something looks wrong in the code that you're reviewing, always assume that like the person that wrote it knows something that you don't. Like, so I always kind of assume that there's some context, like there's something contextual that I'm missing that caused them to write this way, instead of them just, you know, not understanding the problem or something like that. I mean, there may be some subtle, like there may be situations where it's like very clear that like they just didn't know something and that you do, and you can make a recommendation based on that. But you know, in general, if code looks, you know, messy or wrong, I think there's often a good chance that it looks that way because the problem is more complex than you think it is, and that you're missing some bit of context. And so just, I mean, it's like kind of similar to like assume the best, but you know, just it always feels nicer to ask for more context, or ask, was there a reason you did something this way instead of another way, instead of saying you should have done it this way, and then they're on the defensive, and then they're saying, you know, oh well, you know, I did think about doing it that way, but I can't because because of this or that. And so I don't know, that would be the one bit of, you know, recommendation that I could give you off the cuff, I guess. If I am the only one Android dev, how can I review my code before merging? What is your recommendation? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think reviewing your own code, you know, does work to some extent. It's not as effective as getting like fresh eyes on something, but you know, a lot of times I'll push up a CL and just kind of look over the code myself, because seeing it in like a diff form somehow makes me think about it differently. And so sometimes I'll spot, you know, issues when I look at it through that lens, and then I'll go and fix them. And so I'll go through like a couple of iterations before asking review from someone else. But I guess like in addition to that, you know, maybe just like if you're kind of, you know, working on a solo team, like it's just you, one, you have you have the benefit of like, you don't necessarily need to write code in a way that's like super, you know, contextually obvious to anyone else that might stumble upon it. So it's like an advantage. But it's still good to try to do that. But I guess just have the mindset of, you know, maybe continuously improving on your code, and not necessarily even changing the behavior of the code, but just being kind of neat and tidy, and you know, documenting well, factoring functions well, and things like that. I think if you're coding by yourself, it's easy to avoid doing that because it's just like kind of never the priority or something like that. Okay. So you know, I kind of got through the move group function. And I do wonder if this function should maybe be renamed. Because like this feels like a more general function or something. Like it feels like move group, I would pass it like, you know, a group to move and like a starting position and a destination or something like that. So like this could be specified to like move this group to this offset, move current group to this offset or something like that. But so let me try and write something about that. This function feels a little general, where this function actually feels somewhat specific in its purpose. Perhaps it could be named move current group to offset or something. Or you could, if the usage is instead so like I think one of the important things to realize with this function is that when you call this function, the current group will change. So you'll be looking at the group that you like kind of replace this group with. Since the current group after the move is the one you swapped this one with, maybe call it you know, replace with group at offset, or it's something simpler that suggests the same behavior. Sorry, I missed a comment. Sean asks, by the way, it would be great if you could somehow include composed navigation and dog fooding streams to come. Seems like there's a snapshot that's working for basic navigation and navargs. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'll try and do that for the project management app, especially because I think for that app we should have, you know, probably several distinct screens, and you know, some basic navigation there would work well. So yeah, I'll try and do that. All right. So Afzal asked, do you approve if you have suggestions for a PR if there's no bugs in it? It kind of depends on the suggestions that I had, but oftentimes I have fairly minimal suggestions where, like, you know, it might just be something like a lot of these are pretty minimal suggestions. They're not like I think there are some suggestions where it's not technically a bug, but it's you know, bad enough or makes the code unreadable enough or something where I don't want that code going in its current state, and so then I won't give like a +2 is what we call it. But then other times there's like in review there's suggestions that I come up with, but like it's sort of, you know, it's not critical that that suggestion gets implemented, and so if I want to kind of message that that's kind of up to them, I might +2 the CL even with the suggestions, or I might preface the suggestion with like a, hey, this isn't blocking but, and then give the suggestion, or just like wording the suggestion in a way that indicates that like this is not a blocking kind of recommendation in any way. So move, insert, and then delete the group at index from slots. So I guess this will delete the group from the origin, from the slot table that it's coming from. All anchors in the range are moved to the slot table for which this is a reader. It's required that the writer be inserting. Okay. Curious where this is used. Move from. Okay. This insert table. I see. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that we did it this way. Cultivert says no null check for arguments. Which arguments were you thinking? So Kotlin has like somewhat strict nullability built into its type system. So if this, like, we can expect that this will not be null. And actually the Kotlin compiler will insert null checks in here, but the type system should prevent that from ever being a thing anyway. So like, you shouldn't, this function should never get past non-null arguments unless it's called from Java, where it'd be like possible. And in that case anyway, Kotlin will insert null checks here. So not sure if that answers your question, but we don't typically need to check for null unless the type system sort of demands it in Kotlin. Okay. So we have a special case here for moving the entire slot table into an empty table. Fair enough. Index 0, group size 0. Okay, that makes sense. Otherwise, all right. It's interesting that This is on structure. Because do I even this stack groups equals group? Oh, because I need to delete the old group. Okay. Makes sense. Got it. What do we return a list the anchors? I see. List of anchors that were moved. Okay. Anchor tracks a group. Okay. So I'm not super psyched about how this anchor function actually allocates an anchor. Oh, but so it's a getter add. All right, I guess that's fine. Yeah, okay, that's fine then. I was gonna say I wouldn't want this type of function to sort of always allocate, but in this case it's sort of just like lazily allocating them. That works. Anchored allocation. Sean asks, are you active in the Compose channel on Kotlin Lang Slack? I've been less active recently. I mean, I used to be very active, probably more active than anyone else, but I don't know, it kind of goes in waves. It depends, maybe like what I'm working on at work, and then, you know, also these streams have, I think in my head, taken up a lot of my sort of budget for, you know, helping out the community and stuff, and like doing sort of you know, answering questions and stuff like that, and all of which I think is like super important. But you know, there are so many hours in a day, and I do need to continue to be productive with my daily job, which, you know, it does not necessarily include just that. And so I don't know, recently I haven't been as active in there, but again, I think it kind of comes in waves, and I might sort of pick back up more of that conversation. Yeah, I'm glad that you found that helpful. Okay. is like a reasonable to string, I guess. The slot writer. Okay, fix parent anchors for, that makes sense. Basically, you know, when you're updating the anchor positions, you travel up the spine of the hierarchy. Seems reasonable. Move group gap 2. Pretty self-explanatory. I wonder, like, do we not move the gaps together? Is there like a corresponding, yeah, move slot gap. Like, where are these called? Usage. Yeah, like I guess I would expect these would always kind of go in pairs, but maybe not always the same gap that you want to move to. So size moves the writer. Like, why do these have different APIs? Move the gap and slots to index. It's a little bit weird to me. But I just probably don't fully understand it. I guess this is where, so for inserting a group, move the group gap. Slots gap owner. I might just ask about that because I'm sure this is just like, I don't really understand enough of this, but see if he has a nice and easy explanation. Seems like there are situations where we move the group gap, but not the slot gap. We move the slot gap in a slightly different way. This isn't immediately, it's not immediately obvious to me why this would be the case. Elaborate. All right, so that's the move slot gap, you know, which this all seems reasonable. Insert groups, insert slots. Yeah, it's like we do have all these like paired functions, which I mean makes sense. I mean, it's sort of just all part of where this adds, you know, quite a bit of complexity to this data structure. Beer says, thanks for doing different kind of work in the live stream. This is very helpful. Also, your commentary is very helpful. It's like I'm doing a pair programming with you. Yeah, that was sort of the hope, I guess. I'm glad that it feels useful to you. So, I mean, this is just like a knit thing, but it looks like there's a double space here. Knit double space. Okay, I mean, so we basically, whenever we move the gap, we need to update all of the anchors, because the whole idea between anchors is like, if there's a gap in the middle, then any anchor above it, it positions itself just based on, you know, the index from the start, and then the any group below the gap, it then positions itself as a distance from the end. And that's the whole idea. But the downside basically is whenever we move the gap, we have to update the anchors so that are, but we only have to update the anchors that are in between the gap, like starting position and end position. That's what this does. And so I assume that this is like called inside of, yeah, like move group gap 2. So that makes sense. Just a little utility function there. It really is, it's like it is hard for me to look at all this code and like, I mean, it really opens your eyes to just like how much work is actually going on when you're doing like, you know, somewhat basic seeming things, you know, but all of these operations are like, you know, it's pretty raw logic. There's not a lot of you know, expensive stuff going on here. It's just a lot of stuff. Yeah, so this is interesting. So this is how that list is cleared. What does cleared do? It's like, does it mutate that list? Sublist range check. Yeah, because sublist is a view of a portion of the list. It's not a new list, which is kind of crazy. So sublist clear. Interesting. Okay, so sublist doesn't implement clear directly, so it uses this one. That sets size to 0. Well, that doesn't make sense. It must do something. Must not be misunderstanding this correctly, but anchors.sublist.clear. I mean, I guess I'm gonna leave a comment about this, but because I mean, it doesn't feel like this works this way. Like so. It's weird that so this is mutable list.clear. But sublist just returns a list. How does that work? Now I'm really confused. So array list. This is a real rabbit hole. Like, is this a... that's freaking me out a little bit. I mean, I assume that this works how he's using it, but... because it's calling mutable list.clear. Alright, I'm gonna avoid that rabbit hole. Yeah, I mean, he's using this strategy in lots of places. But I do wonder, why not remove range? Like, this seems like the cheaper option. Yeah, I'm gonna bring that up. Let's see. So I see you are using sumlist.sublist ab.clear to remove ranges from array list in several places. I can't seem to figure out how this works when looking at the sources of array list and array list.sublist. Would it not be more efficient and maybe more legible to use the remove range API directly for this? anchors, that's fine. Debugging aid that emits groups as a string. It's not clear to me what this does. A new line. Okay, so it prints out like this information. Yeah, it seems nice. Some verification code, which is always good. Hello, Isolani. I have some music playing. Do you not hear it? It's a little bit quiet. I could turn it up if you wanted. JB Pratt says you can hear it. I could turn it up louder if y'all want. All right, let me turn it up just a bit. Let me know if that is any better. Okay, so we've basically, we've reached the bottom of the slot writer class, and then we've got a lot of these private functions here. Aditya says, if I clear the current slot table and copy over a previous one, is there a way to re-render the UI? So I'm trying to understand exactly what it is that you're asking. Like you're saying, if, like, let's say you compose a whole screen, you've got some slot table, and then you compose something else, you've got another slot table, and then you just copy that over to the new one. You're saying you want a way to like now reflect the new UI. I mean, it's not really kind of an intended use case, I guess. I think that you want the slot table to be like, you kind of want to go from composable function to like slot table, and think of the slot table as like the back-end memory of the composable function, and so like you want to cause the updates to happen through composition. Like composition is what kind of draws the UI on screen, and just think of the slot table as just a storage mechanism. So you kind of need composition to drive it. So maybe if you can explain kind of the underlying use case that you have, that like you're trying to do a specific thing or accomplish a specific goal, then I might be able to point you in a better way to do that than just copying slot tables over. Hi Baraz. Baraz asks, what are you doing now? I just came to watch. At the moment I'm doing some code reviews. So we've got this really big CL that refactors the underlying data structure of the composed runtime, and I'm kind of painfully going through all of it and trying to understand it all and give whatever feedback I have. So I made a few comments on these functions earlier. I'm not gonna comment anymore. They seem pretty reasonable. These group stack keys. What is this? So this is place. Wonder if this oh, is this just used for printing? What does this do? Where is this used? Not used at all. So why is that there? I wonder if this is used. Well, it's private though. So I'm gonna just ask where this is being used and why. Where is this and keys being used? Keys function kills input. Be very inefficient if it is. Oh my gosh. If it is going to be called a lot, but it also seems like it is unused. Okay, DTS says, I was trying to store the history of compositions. You previously mentioned trying observable snapshot, but I couldn't figure it out. Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, I guess you could, so basically if you wanted to do it this way, you might run into some problems, but if you wanted to do it this way, once you copy over the slot table, there should be an API to recompose from like the root. Let's see. Structure. So what is it I'm looking for? Gosh, so much has changed. I mean, so one thing you can do is like we've got there's a flag that we have where it basically forces it prevents any skipping behavior. So it'll basically force the entire table to recompose. Which if you flipped out the slot table with like a previous version, an earlier version of it, then this would work. You might run into like some weird behaviors, but so I'm trying to figure out where this flag is. Because it doesn't skipping providers invalid. I think you could I think if you flipped this flag, and so basically one way to do that is we have a static ambient. That didn't work. Static ambient. So basically if you made a static ambient and provided it at the root level of the slot table, and if you updated the ambient, so like you incremented some number or something, and so that when you invalidated the scope that this ambient was provided in, it changed. The static ambient, its behavior is that if it changes, then it will recompose everything under it and skip nothing. And so if you did this at the root and then you changed it, then you would essentially cause the entire slot table, like the entire hierarchy, to force recompose. And that if you had switched out the slot table just before that, that would probably work pretty well, I guess. I don't know, something worth trying. So let's go back here. We're done with that. So this is 8 bytes. Okay, this is node count. So basically we're so we're storing whether it's a node here, storing whether it has an object key there, and whether it has auxiliary data there. And then the rest of the bits are being used to store how many nodes are in the group. So we don't have a full 32-bit integer for that, but there's enough to store a decent amount of data. Yeah, Aditya, no problem. I will say though, I do think the snapshot approach is probably going to be the better option, and will probably yield like a much more reasonable memory usage than like just storing the entire slot table every time. So I would still push you in that direction. All right. These all seem fine. So this hurts me. We're counting the number of 1 bits of a value less than 8. Where are we using that? I remember that we were doing this, but I don't remember why. Oh, sorry. So we count the number of 1 bits. Oh, I see. That's why we're doing it. It's like the number of... So what he's doing is, you know, so all of the bits here are, this is basically a number, you know, this is the number of nodes that are in that group. But then all of these high bits, these are basically just, you know, booleans indicating whether a certain space is being taken up. And you want to know like how many slots, or like how many like indexes of the group array you're going to use, and that'll depend on if you have an object key or a node and auxiliary data and stuff like that. So I think he's basically taking this number and like, or these bits, so he's taking the overall int and then shifting it so that those bits are all that's left, and then counting the number of 1 bits and doing that with like a win statement, which, and it's a little bit of a bummer, but I mean, this is going to be a fairly efficient implementation because it's just it's just a lookup table basically. So I mean, this could be implemented as an array potentially, instead of a lookup table. It's probably the same exact, probably doesn't make any difference. Okay. So I wonder, so like this type of thing worries me that we're getting, so slice, okay. Like where is this used? Because I saw that other keys function, group deck keys, so this is used, and these are the unused ones. So, all right. Like, is this a debugging thing? Counts. Yeah, I guess these are all debugging aids. I mean, it's not a big deal if these are in there. You know, it's not public API, so I'm not worried about it. I just didn't really understand it. So, okay. So that's fine. We already looked at that. Your add. So this is basically just inline binary search to avoid allocating a lambda, which is fine. This is inline. Okay. All good. All right. So I think we finished the slot table file, which is good. That was kind of the meat of all of this. So I might switch back over to the browser, because I think the rest of these changes are going to be pretty like small, you know, just like little stuff like this. That seems fine. I'm not going to review the tests at the moment. So this becomes opt-in internal API. I wonder why. Internal or mental. UI applier. What became internal here? Okay. Anything here? I guess is the whole slot table class now internal? I mean, that might be a pretty reasonable change. I haven't really thought about it. New set from map. Okay. So a bunch of these opt-in things changed. So I'll have to look at why that is. Convert key. This used to be more difficult. Why? Key source info of and so I wonder if this is, I mean, this seems reasonable, right? But I think we used to do this. Oh, no, okay, the key's now always an int, so that's better. Okay, great. Again, this had to become internal API. Group. Okay. All right, and that was it. So I want to find out what we added this to. So pending became internal. start root, apply changes. Interesting. So this is private already. We need this. Okay, compose initial. Recompose. This is a lot of stuff. I mean, I think it kind of makes sense. Like we do want to start to limit this API a bit more. And like really I mean, like recomposing from the composition feels like a weird, like I don't know what the use case is for that yet. Okay, distance from, this is also private. So I mean, it seems like Chuck kind of went around and marked a bunch of things as internal compose API, which is fine and good, but I'm not sure how much needs to be this. So slot table now is internal compose API, which that's probably the big change. But I think it's kind of a reasonable change. I think I'm okay with slot table being internal. Although it is interesting to see where it ended up leaking out. Yeah, so basically all slot table stuff is internal now. Which it maybe wasn't before. Key info. Like, I wonder if some of these we should just make internal instead of, I guess we need a lot of them for the UI tooling module. So this is private, so we don't need that. And so is this. And this. Here we're actually using the compose compiler API annotation, which is not the case because the compiler doesn't call the start root or end root. This one is one that I'm maybe a little bit concerned about. I do feel like in the long run there might be some good use cases for letting people call apply changes themselves. Like, did this happen anywhere else? Compose initial. Okay. So who uses this? So this is this in Recomposer? I don't think so. Recomposer is its own. This is Composer, Compose Initial. So that didn't change. Like, I almost wonder if this should just be made private. Where's this used? Let me go find this. Usages. So we use this in Recomposer, which is in the same module, so it could be internal. Composed modifier test, and we use it in a test, which I'm gonna take as not necessarily a valid use case for that test. And this, even more of this logic is supposed to move away, I guess. Oh no, that's just this. But yeah, I mean, this is same module, so I'm gonna suggest that we make this internal. Can we just make this actually internal? The only usages I saw of it in the same module, with the exception of those. Test probably be rewritten differently. Okay. So I want to go and look through this, like, Let's see what new opt-ins were added. So there are 83 of them. Yeah, sorry, I don't know. I'm using the Microsoft ergonomic keyboard. It's not terribly loud, but you know, I'm using a condenser microphone, which basically picks up everything, and so it's above the level of my noise gate. So sorry if that's annoying. I'm also maybe typing extra hard today. All right, so let's go. I guess let's just look through some of these. Skippable updater. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So I think as I'm looking at like the opt-ins that were needed here, I'm kind of interested in any opt-in that happened outside of the compose runtime, because that indicates that there was something that we were using somewhere outside of the runtime that is now having to opt in, and that's sort of a bit of a smell. Okay, so like this is an example of that. Let me see if I can try and figure out now what it was. Slot table set. So I guess it's the slot table. Like the fact that we're using the slot table type at all is an indication of this. And I kind of agree, like, so like it looks like it is necessary because slot table became internal compose API. The fact that we need this outside of the runtime, an indication that the slot table class itself shouldn't necessarily be made internal. Do you think? Just something to think about. It's not the end of the world, you know. So this file, this is inside UI tooling, which I'm okay with. I think UI tooling is just always going to have some internal implementation details that it uses. Same with the tooling test. Layout inspector. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so that's not a huge deal. Wrapper was the only, like, so basically like our set content API was the only API in our entire code base that used an internal anything here, which is pretty reasonable. But even that, if we can avoid it, would be nice. So then last thing I'm going to do is just kind of look at some of these API changes and just see if any stick out as concerning. So these are the lint warnings, which, you know, we're returning arrays and stuff here, which we have some lint rules against. I'm I am okay with it because this is just a very performance sensitive thing, and the slot table, you know, isn't like technically public API from this like add internal thing, but I don't know, it's debatable. So Kotlin operator, looks like we got rid of some here, so that's good. Missing nullability. I don't know what that's about. Okay. So anchor changed. I'm fine with that. Key info changed. Meta key, object key. I mean, data key versus object key, I don't really care. Just name. This was made internal. Okay. I guess all of these things used to be internal Compose API. I don't know. Most of these look like just type changes. I do wonder how many of these methods could just be made internal. I mean, the whole thing is labeled as internal Compose API, but still. These APIs internal, since they should really be used from inside from Composer. Some of them might need to be public for UI tooling, but it seems unlikely that it would be all of them. This refactor might be a good opportunity to slim this API surface area down a bit. Okay. So slot table here, kind of the same thing. I'm just gonna add on here, same thing for slot writer and slot table. Okay, and so now we're past current, so these are all just the same things, basically. Remove the samples. Okay. And then we looked through these changes. already. So that's pretty good. I think that's a good next slew of messages here. And basically, I think I'm not gonna +2 it yet because I want us to talk about some of the public API things, like for slot table and slot reader. But most of these comments are just nits or clarification questions, but a few of them aren't. So I'm gonna let this kind of round of feedback go, and then probably after some of these comments are addressed, then like we're pretty close to like a +2 here. But yeah, I'm just gonna send this here. Okay, and that is that for now. I think I'm gonna go grab some lunch now, but that makes a good stopping point for the stream. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and hope that was interesting to you. And I'll see you tomorrow probably. Cheers.